The handcuffs clicked shut at 4:15 a.m. on September 18, 2025, 17 months after Dr. Callie Morgan, the 33-year-old best-selling psychologist and wellness influencer with 4.8 million Instagram followers, vanished from a luxury retreat in Sedona, Arizona. When FBI agents led away 42-year-old Yasmine Wells, the celebrated founder of the KanaLife wellness empire and spiritual guru to Hollywood elites, the collective gasp could be heard from Red Rock canyons to the boardrooms of billion-dollar wellness corporations. Yasmine wasn't just another wellness coach. She was the architect of a movement that had transformed how millions approached mental health, the visionary behind retreats that charged $15,000 per week and had waiting lists stretching 2 years. She was also the woman who had mentored Dr. Callie Morgan from obscurity to stardom, who had tearfully led candlelight vigils when Callie disappeared, and who had offered a $1 million reward for information about her protégé's whereabouts. But as the FBI would reveal in the explosive indictment that followed, Yasmine Wells had been orchestrating the most sophisticated fraud in the wellness industry's history, and Dr. Callie Morgan had died trying to expose it. Dr. Callie Morgan was everything the wellness world celebrated and everything traditional psychology had been missing. At 33, she possessed a rare combination of academic credibility and social media savvy that had made her the bridge between evidence-based therapy and accessible self-help. With her flowing auburn hair, warm hazel eyes, and the kind of genuine smile that made people feel instantly understood, Callie had built a following that transcended typical influencer demographics. Her audience included teenagers struggling with anxiety, working mothers dealing with burnout, and executives seeking authentic connection in an increasingly digital world. But Callie was far more than her Instagram presence suggested. She held a PhD in clinical psychology from Harvard, had published peer-reviewed research on trauma recovery, and had spent 5 years working with veterans before transitioning to private practice. Her book, Healing in Real Time, had spent 37 weeks on the New York Times bestseller list and had been translated into 23 languages. What set Callie apart was her commitment to ethical practice in an industry increasingly dominated by unqualified coaches making dangerous promises. She regularly called out wellness scams, insisted on evidence-based treatments, and donated significant portions of her earnings to mental health accessibility programs. Her partnership with Yasmine Wells and KanaLife had begun in 2022, when Yasmine invited Callie to speak at a retreat focused on trauma recovery. Callie had been impressed by KanaLife's apparent commitment to combining luxury accommodations with legitimate therapeutic practices, and she had agreed to become their chief psychological consultant. On April 7, 2024, Callie arrived in Sedona for what was supposed to be KanaLife's flagship event, Radical Renewal, a week-long intensive retreat that had attracted 150 participants paying $7,000 each. The guest list included Fortune 500 CEOs, Hollywood actors, professional athletes, and social media personalities, the kind of high-profile clients that had made KanaLife the most exclusive wellness brand in the world. Callie's role was to deliver the keynote address and lead daily group therapy sessions that would anchor the retreat's programming. She had spent months preparing a presentation on authentic transformation versus wellness theater, a topic that had become increasingly important to her as she witnessed the commodification of mental health treatment. Sarah Kim, Callie's personal assistant and closest friend, was the last person to speak with her. Sarah had remained in Los Angeles to manage Callie's practice while she was at the retreat, and they had spoken by phone at 11:30 p.m. on April 7th. Callie seemed excited but also nervous, Sarah later told investigators. She said she had discovered something about KanaLife that was going to change everything. When I asked what she meant, she said she couldn't talk about it over the phone, but that she had evidence of something that would blow up the entire industry. Security footage from the Enchantment Resort, where retreat participants were staying, showed Callie returning to her suite at 11:47 p.m. after the welcome dinner. She was carrying her laptop bag and appeared to be in animated conversation with someone off camera, later identified as Yasmine Wells. The footage showed Callie entering her suite at 11:52 p.m. At 5:33 a.m. on April 8th, her Instagram account posted a story featuring a sunrise photo over Sedona's red rocks with the caption, "Feel the truth in the silence." It would be her final post. When Callie failed to appear for the 8 a.m. breakfast gathering, Yasmine initially told participants that she was feeling unwell. But when Callie missed her scheduled 10 a.m. keynote, something she had never done in her professional career, concern turned to alarm. Detective Maria Santos of the Coconino County Sheriff's Office was called to the resort at 2:30 p.m. on April 8th. What she found was a scene that immediately suggested foul play rather than a voluntary disappearance. Callie's suite appeared to have been hastily cleaned. Her bed was made with hospital corners, a level of precision that didn't match the housekeeping staff's usual standards. Her suitcase was packed, but several items that friends confirmed she never traveled without. Her grandmother's ring, her lucky pen, her prescription medications were missing. Most telling was the state of Callie's laptop and phone. The laptop was found on the desk with its hard drive completely wiped, a process that required technical knowledge Callie didn't possess. Her phone was discovered 3 days later by hikers, smashed beyond repair at the bottom of Oak Creek Canyon, 10 miles from the resort. The investigation that followed revealed a complex web of financial fraud, psychological manipulation, and corporate cover-ups that challenged everything people believed about the wellness industry. KanaLife, Detective Santos discovered, was far more than a luxury retreat company. It was the centerpiece of a sophisticated operation that used wellness programming to identify and exploit vulnerable individuals with significant financial resources. The company's business model relied on moving participants through a carefully designed psychological funnel. Initial retreats appeared legitimate, featuring qualified therapists and evidence-based programming. But participants who showed signs of emotional dependency or financial desperation were quietly moved into advanced programs that used coercive techniques to extract increasing amounts of money. Dr. Jennifer Walsh, a cult expert brought in to consult on the case, explained how the system worked. KanaLife used legitimate therapeutic techniques as a Trojan horse for financial exploitation. They would identify participants' deepest insecurities and traumas, then convince them that healing required increasingly expensive and exclusive programs. Some participants had spent over $500,000 on KanaLife services over the course of 2 years. The investigation revealed that Callie had begun questioning KanaLife's methods in the months before her disappearance. Her personal notes, recovered from cloud storage backups, documented growing concerns about the company's treatment of vulnerable participants. "I'm seeing people who are clearly suffering from depression, anxiety, and trauma being told that traditional therapy is limiting their potential," she had written in February 2024. Yasmine is convincing them to abandon their medications, their support systems, their therapists, everything that actually helps them, in favor of increasingly expensive KanaLife programs. Callie's notes revealed that she had been secretly documenting KanaLife's practices, collecting evidence of financial exploitation, medical malpractice, and psychological abuse. She had been preparing to present this evidence to state licensing boards and federal investigators when she disappeared. The breakthrough in the case came from an unexpected source: encrypted files on Callie's laptop that had been automatically backed up to a secondary cloud account that investigators initially overlooked. FBI Special Agent Lisa Rodriguez, who specialized in white-collar crime in the wellness industry, discovered the files during a comprehensive review of Callie's digital footprint in late 2024. The files contained thousands of pages of documentation showing how KanaLife operated what amounted to a sophisticated financial scam. The company used psychological profiling to identify participants who were wealthy, emotionally vulnerable, and socially isolated. These individuals were then subjected to intensive manipulation designed to make them increasingly dependent on KanaLife services. The most damaging evidence came from recorded conversations between Yasmine Wells and her senior staff, including Adam Price, KanaLife's head of security. The recordings revealed detailed discussions about how to handle problem participants, individuals who began questioning the company's methods or threatening to expose their practices. In one recording dated March 15, 2024, Yasmine could be heard discussing Callie specifically. "She's becoming a liability. She has too much credibility, too much influence. If she goes public with what she thinks she knows, it could destroy everything we've built. We need to find a way to neutralize her before she can cause real damage." The recordings revealed that KanaLife had used various tactics to silence critics, including legal intimidation, financial pressure, and in some cases, more direct forms of coercion. Several former participants had been threatened with lawsuits or had experienced suspicious break-ins at their homes after expressing concerns about the company. But Callie presented a unique challenge because of her professional credentials and public platform. Traditional intimidation tactics were unlikely to work against someone with her resources and visibility. The solution, according to the recordings, was to eliminate Callie during the April retreat, making her disappearance appear to be either a voluntary departure or an accident in the Arizona wilderness. Armed with this evidence, FBI agents obtained warrants to search KanaLife's corporate offices and Yasmine Wells' personal properties. What they found there provided the final pieces of the puzzle that had remained unsolved for 17 months. Hidden in a safe in Yasmine's Malibu mansion were detailed financial records showing that KanaLife had extracted over $200 million from participants through fraudulent programs. The company had used shell corporations and offshore accounts to hide the money, creating a complex financial structure designed to avoid taxes and regulatory oversight. More damaging were the personal files Yasmine had kept on high-profile participants, including detailed psychological profiles, financial information, and in some cases, compromising photographs and recordings obtained without consent. The files revealed that KanaLife had been systematically blackmailing wealthy participants who tried to leave the program or speak out about their experiences. But the most incriminating evidence was found in Adam Price's personal computer. Detailed plans for Callie's disappearance, including maps of remote areas where her body could be disposed of, research into methods for destroying digital evidence, and communications with individuals who specialized in making problems disappear permanently. Confronted with this overwhelming evidence, Adam Price agreed to cooperate with investigators in exchange for a reduced sentence. His confession provided the final details of what had happened to Dr. Callie Morgan on April 8, 2024. According to Price's statement, Yasmine had instructed him to detain Callie when she threatened to expose KanaLife at the morning keynote session. The plan was to hold her in a soundproofed conference room at the resort until they could convince her to remain silent in exchange for a substantial financial settlement. But when Price attempted to escort Callie to the meeting, she realized what was happening and tried to escape. In the struggle that followed, Price claimed that Callie fell and struck her head on a marble table, suffering fatal injuries. Panicking, Price said he had contacted Yasmine, who instructed him to dispose of Callie's body and stage her disappearance as either a voluntary departure or an accident. Price had driven Callie's body to a remote area of the Coconino National Forest, where it had never been recovered despite extensive searches. The confession explained many of the inconsistencies that had puzzled investigators for over a year. Price's access to the resort's security systems had allowed him to delete footage showing Callie's final hours. His technical expertise had enabled him to wipe her laptop and post her final Instagram story to create the impression that she had left voluntarily. Most chilling was Price's revelation that this wasn't the first time KanaLife had dealt with problem participants through violence. He claimed that at least 3 other individuals who had threatened to expose the company had died under suspicious circumstances, their deaths made to appear accidental or attributed to suicide. The arrests of Yasmine Wells and Adam Price sent shockwaves through the wellness industry that reverberated from Sedona to the boardrooms of major corporations that had partnerships with KanaLife. For 17 months, the wellness community had mourned Dr. Callie Morgan as a brilliant healer whose disappearance represented the dangers faced by women in high-profile positions. The revelation that she had been murdered by the very people she had trusted to provide ethical wellness services shattered the community's faith in an industry that had positioned itself as a safer alternative to traditional healthcare. Callie's family, her parents David and Susan Morgan and her younger sister Emma, finally had answers to the questions that had tormented them for over a year. But the truth brought devastating realization about how completely they had been deceived. Yasmine sat at our kitchen table, crying with us, promising she would never stop looking for Callie, Susan Morgan said at the press conference announcing the arrests. She spoke at Callie's memorial service, talking about what a beautiful soul she was and how much she missed her, all while knowing she had ordered her death. The trial of Yasmine Wells and Adam Price began in March 2025 and lasted 4 months. The prosecution, led by U.S. Attorney Jennifer Martinez, presented a methodical case built on financial records, recorded conversations, digital evidence, and testimony from dozens of former KanaLife participants who had been victimized by the company's practices. The defense teams attempted different strategies. Price's lawyers argued that Callie's death had been accidental and that he had panicked rather than acted with premeditation. Wells' attorneys claimed that she had been unaware of Price's actions and that he had acted independently to protect the company without her knowledge. But the jury wasn't convinced by either defense. The recorded conversations clearly showed Wells discussing the need to neutralize Callie, and the evidence of systematic fraud and abuse made it clear that both defendants had been willing to use violence to protect their criminal enterprise. After deliberating for 12 hours over 2 days, the jury returned guilty verdicts on all charges for both defendants. Wells was convicted of first-degree murder, racketeering, fraud, and tax evasion. Price was found guilty of second-degree murder, conspiracy, and evidence tampering. Judge Robert Chen sentenced Yasmine Wells to life in prison without the possibility of parole, plus additional terms for the financial crimes. Adam Price received a sentence of 35 years to life. Both will spend the remainder of their lives behind bars for crimes that had remained hidden for 17 months. During the sentencing hearing, more than 50 former KanaLife participants testified about the psychological and financial damage they had suffered. Their testimony revealed the scope of the company's predatory practices and the lasting trauma inflicted on vulnerable individuals seeking help. Maria Rodriguez, a former executive who had lost over $300,000 to KanaLife programs, addressed the court directly. Dr. Morgan died trying to protect people like me from predators like Yasmine Wells. She saw what was happening to vulnerable people and chose to risk everything to expose it. Her courage saved countless others from falling into the same trap that destroyed my life. The collapse of KanaLife triggered investigations into dozens of similar companies operating in the unregulated wellness space. The FBI established a task force dedicated to investigating fraud in the wellness industry, leading to additional arrests and the shutdown of several other predatory organizations. Dr. Callie Morgan's legacy lives on through the Callie Morgan Foundation for Wellness Ethics, established by her family to support legitimate mental health services and advocate for stronger regulations in the wellness industry. The foundation has pushed for licensing requirements for wellness coaches, mandatory disclosure of treatment methods, and stronger protections for whistleblowers who expose fraudulent practices. Callie believed that everyone deserved access to ethical, evidence-based mental health support, David Morgan said at the foundation's inaugural conference. Her death must serve as a wake-up call for an industry that has prioritized profit over people's well-being for too long. The case has become a landmark in discussions about regulation of the wellness industry and the responsibility of influencers to vet the companies they partner with. It has highlighted how predators can use the language of healing and empowerment to exploit vulnerable individuals, and the deadly consequences that can result when fraud is exposed. Dr. Sarah Martinez, a clinical psychologist who has studied the case extensively, explains its broader implications. The Callie Morgan case shows how the commercialization of mental health has created opportunities for exploitation that didn't exist when therapy was primarily conducted in traditional clinical settings. When healing becomes a luxury product, it attracts people who are more interested in profit than patient welfare. The wellness industry has implemented some changes in response to Callie's case, including voluntary certification programs for coaches and increased transparency about treatment methods. However, critics argue that these measures don't address the fundamental lack of regulation that enabled KanaLife's crimes to continue undetected for years. As of today, September 19, 2025, Yasmine Wells and Adam Price remain in federal prison, where they are serving their sentences. Wells has shown no remorse for her crimes and continues to maintain that she was building a legitimate business designed to help people heal from trauma. The case serves as a stark reminder that the pursuit of wellness can become its own form of sickness when profit motives override ethical obligations, that the people who promise to heal us may be the ones who harm us most, and that speaking truth to power, even in industries built on love and light, can still be deadly. Dr. Callie Morgan was 33 years old when her life was stolen by people who had built their empire on her expertise and credibility. Her dreams of making mental health support accessible and ethical died with her in a conference room where she should have been safe, killed by a partner who had promised to share her vision of healing the world. But her memory lives on as a catalyst for change in an industry that had lost its way, a reminder that true wellness requires integrity, transparency, and genuine care for human well-being, rather than just profit margins and Instagram followers. The red rocks of Sedona still draw seekers looking for transformation and healing. But now they also serve as a memorial to a woman who died trying to ensure that those seeking help would find genuine healing rather than sophisticated exploitation disguised as spiritual growth.